Welcome to this episode of Let's Talk Data. I'm very happy to have been given the opportunity to talk to Hoseb Dermanilian, who is the head of AI and analytics business at NetApp. In this episode, we take a closer look and try to define what AI is, but more importantly, what AI isn't. Often, IT managers and directors get told by the board to go do AI. That's kind of hard because AI can be interpreted in so many different ways. In this episode, we'll learn from Hoseb how to better define AI to start your AI journey the right way. In addition to that, we discuss Hoseb's coolest projects over the past few years and how we all need to start being more humble and start working together if we want to utilize the power of AI fully. As always, I hope you learn something new and that you'll enjoy the show. So, Hoseb, nice to have you on the podcast, sitting on the other side of the pond in California, taking Let's Talk Data International. Welcome. How are you?
I'm good, Nico. How are you doing? Actually, I'm in Denver, so...
You're in Denver?
Yeah.
All right, still across the pond.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So it's an honor having you on here, a big international AI expert hotshot. Let's dive right into it. And, what I want to hear the most from a guy like you is, what's the coolest AI project that you've been part of or helped someone with? Like the one.
Well, first off, thank you for having me on the podcast, Nico. I gotta say that I don't have as fancy setup as Jack did, so I'm you could tell I'm jealous, but we'll make it work. So one of the best AI projects. So I've been with doing this for the past 3 years. Obviously, I changed a couple of countries. I started in Dubai, and then I started covering Europe, and now globally. Every project has its own different, I would say, flavor. Some of them was in healthcare, which fascinated me. Someone who had, past family experience with cancer and all of that. I was always impressed by how healthcare is heavily invested in AI, trying to make our lives better. I have, you could tell that the technology played a great role, for example, in the COVID science and all the vaccine discovery, right? Probably not a lot of them are saying, hey, it was AI, because humans are first. So it was the research and the data scientists. But also at the same time, I'm confident that a lot of companies use their technology, especially collecting data, analyzing the data. So healthcare has a special part in my heart. I worked with a couple of projects who have done, AI-based pathology, radiology, tumor detection, and all of that. So that's the healthcare part. The other parts are usually the day-to-day automated checkouts at retail stores, et cetera, et cetera. So I think all of them were great examples of, improving our lives, improving our experiences. Netflix is a great example where I wasn't engaged directly with the project, but again, when Netflix recommends things that I like, that's also a cool AI project to talk about.
Okay, it has not been mentioned too often about AI when developing the COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
Do you have any details about like what part, how that has been? Where did AI play a role?
Well, even if I had, I'm not able to talk. But I think the most part that was, so here's the thing. Before COVID, we were having a lot of projects that were using GPUs for genomic study acceleration, right? Obviously, I am, in my own thinking and belief is, if people were doing all this accelerated research on GPUs and the data availability, think about it, right? The vaccine companies, what they were missing most is the data from China. They wanted the data from what happened in the early days, how people recovered at the early days, and it was all about data, logging the data and having the data. Now, once you have the data, what do you do with it? Basically is analytics. right? Now, we're going to talk about what AI uncovers inside the AI umbrella. But I think with the COVID acceleration, well, first off, I'm a highly believer that research and scientists played a major role, right? Without our
Of course.
brightest data scientists out there and visionaries and all of that. But again, they had the data that helped them. And when people are doubting the vaccine, that it's been, how come you can come up with a vaccine in a year where the previous vaccines took them 6-7 years to, kind of get there? Well, people, think about it. We didn't have this data sharing before. People were recording, hospitals were recording all on paper. So imagine if you want to collect samples of 100,000 patients before, it would have taken days to fax these things, to scan these things, to send these things. Today, they have it with one click. They can share 100,000 patients in one place. Different vaccine companies can share the different patient data with each other. And I think that accelerated the approach. Plus, obviously, there's a lot of DNA, and I'm not a biologist or a doctor, but I think, reading and educating myself, there's a lot of DNA research around it. There's a lot of probably genomics research around it. And me knowing about projects that tend to use AI for genomics, especially the GPU accelerated, the data accelerated, I am sure that there was some aspect of AI role in the vaccine play. I could be wrong, because companies might have done this fully the way they did it before, but they had the data which accelerated. So again, it will uncover probably a few years from now, because it's very critical right now to share how you have done this, because a lot of companies want to do it. But 6 years, 7 years down the road, when there won't be this much of probably demand, and it's going to become a regular flu shot type of stuff, companies will share how they've done it. And that's where we will know how they exactly came up with this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's highly likely, let's say, that AI had a role in it. Obviously, and the data points, people infected was a pretty high number too, to get an accurate result from the analytics.
You need records. That's the most valuable thing that they had. Even today, after the vaccine, right, there's still research like, are people who are getting infected will be reinfected, right? When they say we don't have rare data, we don't have data. That's their saying. We don't have data to decide. We cannot simulate people getting sick with COVID, right? In autonomous driving, you can simulate a car. You can simulate a flight autopilot, but you cannot simulate people getting sick. So they need real data. And that's where, it's massive. You go into a restaurant now, they take your phone, they take your name. The tracing has played a big role. And I could tell you, if there is anything that has used AI in this COVID era, was the tracing. COVID tracing of, it used AI to kind of look at where people have been, the groups, the spots, the breaks, outbreaks, et cetera, et cetera. So not only vaccine, there's a lot of other things that, the tracing is one example, mass detection is another example. Now we're getting, we are developing a use case that is related to some COVID aspects of our day-to-day lives. So it's people wearing masks, people have temperatures, right? All of that. If you think about it, it's AI. If someone looking at your, infrared and all of that, there's a lot of advancements and developments have been done over there.
Well, that's true. And now you said a term that was, it's AI. And I guess, there are a lot of parts to AI. We're talking about machine learning, we have deep learning, we have, and everybody's throwing AI around like it's, the new hello. Do you want to straighten that out for us? What is AI according to you compared to, deep learning and machine learning, or are those the parts that make it? There are many different, if you Google this, there are, I'd say, many different versions of.
So let me ask you a question then. If I'm a, someone who comes and tells, hey, Nico, I'm doing AI project, in your mind, where does your mind immediately go? Oh, he's doing AI project. So what do you think I'm doing in AI?
Well, I would say they were probably using some, machine learning algorithms that someone else has created, and to get a result that fits their needs.
Yeah. So to be honest with you, this was one of the areas that I was struggling when I started this.
And I don't say that is AI. That is what I think.
That is what you think,
AI
right?
is.
So that is one of the not problem. It's a challenge because today AI is it's getting less and less commonly used than it was when it was the hype a year ago or so, right? 2 years ago probably, where I was getting calls saying, "Hey, Hoseb, we want you to talk about AI," and I'm like, "Okay, what specifically in AI you want me to talk about?" Because AI is a big thing, big term. It has machine learning, it has deep learning. Then I started realizing that people are calling their very simple projects of even rule-based analytics, which was there many years ago, as AI, right? Even if you go with a lot of softwares out there, say AI-empowered, database. So I think it is very important for the listeners to this podcast, I'm sure the data scientists will be the most people out there who know about this, but the rest of the world is really in this dilemma of, okay, what do I call my project? Let's call it AI. AI is not a lot of things. It is very simply, it has a machine learning aspect where you are training your models based on features. Then you've got the deep learning where, you train the models, you let them learn the features. You've got, it's obviously day over day, we're seeing new different variants of the deep learning, of the neural networks, etc. But, there are people, chatbots historically has been called as AI, which is still fine. But, in my opinion...
Jack Watts hates chatbots.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have... I personally don't use my banks or my airlines chatbot or even the automated response because we'll come into that. But anyways, to not segue, AI is really, in my opinion, the real AI is the one done on GPUs, right? That's a very simple benchmark for me because what I'm seeing with the GPU acceleration today. And how you are reducing the time needed to train the models, et cetera, that is you're doing the real AI here, right? I have seen people who said, hey, we want to fly cars or not fly, whatever, but we don't have GPUs. We're doing it all on CPUs, right? No offense, but in my opinion, with the advancements happening today with the GPUs, I think the real AI for me is the machine learning, the deep learning that is done, that is using all the advancements. It's not a secret that NVIDIA is leading the market here. I love their technology, what they're doing in Rapids. They are actually taking the old ways of ingesting data, analyzing that data, bringing down the days into hours and not even minutes. And then obviously the deep learning, the ray tracing and all of that. So I think if you're a company, if you're an IT director, if you are a VP of infrastructure and someone tells you to, let's do AI, let's understand what do you want to do. It always starts from the business case. If you want to have automated checkouts, you can use AI technologies such as the deep learning, vision inspection and all of that. You can also use machine learning in order to sort customers, what favorite thing. People using machine learning, for example, to put different chips next to cheese. They analyze what customers are purchasing. That is machine learning. You're analyzing, right? That's it. So again, I think the AI is not a big, don't call everything you're doing as AI. Analytics is still there. People are still calling things analytics. NoSQL databases are still there. It doesn't mean if you're doing NoSQL, you are doing AI. But AI is really specifically into the machine learning, the deep learning, and neural networking. People can add different things nowadays, but those are the basics, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Yeah, we see a lot of products and vendors today that throw around the AI, as you mentioned, the term AI, and sometimes it can be doing analytics with machine learning algorithms to be able to predict an outcome or historic trends, for instance.
Yeah, it gets blended, right? It really gets blended. If you're doing the Face ID recognition on your phone, you're doing AI, but I won't go out there and say, "Hey, I'm an AI user." We use AI today on our Google Home. We use it on Alexa, but I'm a user of the AI rather than I didn't develop this Alexa or I didn't develop the Face ID. So those are the ones that are doing the real AI where it really matters from an infrastructure perspective, right?
Right. So you mentioned, organizations using AI or not using AI, and a couple of years ago, or still actually, many companies they say they are a cloud first. They have a cloud first strategy. So referring to looking at utilizing resources not owned by them. To do their often IT in this case. It could be obviously applications as well. But, I've started to hear the term AI first organizations, and I'm trying to translate that from what the cloud first strategy organizations do. And I really, could you clear that up for me? What's an AI first organization?
So when the first AI first organization term came up, probably in 2018 or something like that, around that time, there was a lot of good things around that, like, hey, we want to make our company more advanced. We want to use the AI technology to increase customer experience and all of that, right? The use cases of AI, typical use case of AI. But as we move forward, it also created some dark spot where now they started coining the term AI first strategy as the aspiration of an organization to use machine learning or AI technology versus human expertise.
Okay, whatever it may fit.
Whatever they may fit. Now, if I am, someone who's working at McDonald's to take orders, and now let's not call McDonald's, X company that does burgers, and then that burger company says, hey, I'm an AI first strategy. And someone, goes home and research, my company wants to become an AI first strategy. And they read, they want to use machine learning versus human expertise. The first thing, naturally you'll think about is that you're losing your job right now. And you'll start thinking, how can I compete with a machine? Right? And, all these things. And you use a computer. Most of the people think that a computer is smarter than them. How come the AI, right? Now that started creating this two camps of, AI is dangerous. No, AI is not dangerous. So, AI first strategy, to be honest with you, I'm not seeing that term being used a lot. Now, cloud first strategy is different. Even cloud first strategy started freaking out the IT people at the beginning, guys. I don't know if you have seen that.
Absolutely.
I'm an IT person. I used to manage 50 servers in the data center. If the company wants to move this into the cloud, what do we do? But eventually that evolved into a site reliability engineer. So IT people started learning how to manage a cloud infrastructure because you still need to manage something, right? So it happened the same thing with AI because, as we move forward, we started realizing that no matter what we do, we're not fully replacing human beings. We might make their life easier, right? Instead of you spending 10 hours in sorting out a table, I use different techniques to sort out that table for you in a second. I'm not replacing you. And I give this example to a lot of when I do my talks, I say, and I'll ask you, Nico, here, do you fly an airplane when someone tells you there is no human pilot in the cockpit? Do you do you board that airplane?
Today?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Maybe even in the future, right?
I don't know.
Because we, as human beings, we trust humans 100% today. I mean, I trust every pilot that I am boarding that plane for, right? The guy studied. But if they tell me there is no pilot at this moment in this airplane, I probably will say, not today. The same thing, right? If you go into a doctor, right, and the doctor gives you the good news, and then there is a machine next to the doctor, the machine gives you the bad news. Who you believe? You'll believe the machine or the doctor?
I tell the doctor to check if the machine is right.
Yeah, you'll believe the doctor because you tend to like the positive news. If the doctor tells you the negative news and the machine tells you the positive news, you'll tell, oh, doctor, you don't know more than the machine. So I think what has been evolved, and you know, again, this is a talk to the IT directors and the VPs or whatever. If someone tells you, if your board tells you want to become an AI first, don't freak out that this will make the people underneath you feel like you are replacing them. In reality, find ways. If we want to use the technology in bad ways, we still can. And that's what Elon Musk keeps saying, right? If you want to use AI, it's going to be in the dangerous way, it can be dangerous. But, you know, the projects I am seeing today, none of the projects I worked on had the mission to replace human beings. It had the mission to make their lives easier. It had the mission to help doctors make less errors. It had the mission to, for example, help the checking people, you know, less errors, less checking errors, less, you know. Today, if you are missing out something on the receipt, some companies make their people pay for it. But if I am applying a technology that helps you check out everything getting checked out so that you're not missing anything there, it obviously improves the company's revenue. It probably saves your job, right? If you're a doctor today and you make less mistakes, it probably saves your job rather than replaces your job. So I think AI first strategy is shaping more and more. When it first came, everyone was using it massively without knowing the implications. Now they are using it more carefully. So again, if you go to a CEO and ask him, are you an AI first strategy company? They will not give you a straight answer. They'll tell you, we are using AI to help the company. You know, if they say yes, then that will create something, a bubble in the company that will say, oh, let's find a different job because 5 months down the road, I might not have a job at this company.
Yeah, I mean, these topics are super interesting. Have you read the 21st Questions for the 21st Century by Yuval Noah Harari? No?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Have you read any of his other books?
No,
Sapiens,
no.
Stuff. Okay, I strongly recommend them.
Okay.
They're amazing. The best nonfiction books I've ever read, actually. But I guess in your case, the latest book, the 21st Questions for the 21st Century, is probably the most interesting, where he discusses actually AI extensively in the time spectra of today until 2050. So like the close future, kind of. Where, you know, it discusses pros and cons or how it could be, you know, are people going to lose their jobs? And as you say, I mean, it's obviously no, not necessarily, unless the makers of that product or so on aim to do so. But then again, you know, someone has to manage everything, and you know, there's so many pros and cons that can be discussed about like future AI. He's talking about autonomous doctors in as you say, software being able to identify stuff or at least do you know, easy what do you call it? You get if you go to a doctor and they say you have
diagnostic,
so they, you know, software that can diagnose most things. The good parts of that would be that suddenly, like, most people in the world would have a doctor in their pocket. That might not cost anything.
So okay. Also think about this, right? We are talking about a first, you know, level countries, developed countries, right? We're talking about the United States, we're talking about Sweden, but there are,
of course,
there are countries like, you know, where For example, I was born in Syria, and the down there, or even in Armenia, or even other areas, they don't have all this luxury of the highly educated doctors. They're not saying that there aren't good doctors over there, but I think the demand versus the offering is very high. That all these technologies in the future will help scale and will help reach areas where the doctors are not available. We are living in areas where we have the luxury today where we can find the best doctors around us. In areas there aren't that much of luxury, and that's where I think and I believe this technology will help. I always think about the positive side. Again, if we want to come up with negative use cases, there's so many, right? It's the same with social media. You can either use it in good ways or you can use it in bad ways. And if we want to find the bad thing in everything, people still finding, bad things in the cloud computing. No matter how many people move to the cloud on all the positive aspects of the cloud computing, people still find negative things in the cloud computing, right? So again, I think just focus on the positive aspects. I am really pleased the way the technology is moving. Unfortunately, the COVID accelerated the digital transformation, right? 2 years ago, when we were telling customers that, hey, you need, use this technology to count people who are getting into your store and count people out, which areas are getting more crowded. And they were all telling us, we don't need that today. I can put someone on the door to count people. Today, there is a demand of counting people, finding spots, and now they think that it is unfortunately, the COVID happened, and then we realized that all these technologies that these people, the poor guys were coming to us, having all these meetings, telling us about the new technologies, and we were keep telling them, down the road, maybe 10 years, I'll need this. I needed it today. So, and I think there's more shifting towards, guys, let's avoid another hiccup in the future. What can we do, right? So they are more open to listen to the new technologies rather than just focusing what's today. I could tell you we're seeing that, and AI falls in one of those areas.
All right. Yeah, that's interesting. So bringing it back to organizations and using AI or using AI-like software, I guess most organizations that might not call themselves AI first, but adapt new software might be using some type of a machine learning algorithm at least. But for organizations that see a need to develop their own, let's say you're a grocery store, not a store, but you have lots of grocery stores in a country, and you want to do what Amazon does. Does it have to cost $1 billion to start with this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So here's the thing. I think within the AI adopters, there are two type of users. The ones who want to leverage the AI technology that was developed by someone. So, for example, when you do your Face ID recognition on your iPhone, you don't need the $300 million equipment or whatever the number is that Apple spent on to develop this Face ID, right? And a very simple example, if you're a hospital that you want to detect tumors on MRIs through AI, or help doctors, detect that, you don't probably need to spend the large amounts of infrastructure money. You could buy an MRI machine that comes with an AI feature, right? Now, the second part, so those are the ones who don't need to spend, they just need to buy the MRI machine, probably a little bit premium because it comes with the AI features. If you are the MRI maker though, you would probably need some extra infrastructure cost. It doesn't have to be in billions of dollars. It depends on how far you want to go. It depends on how you want to scale. But those would need more infrastructure dollars than the users, because they need to train the models, they need to add the small sensors in the MRI machines, they need to, all the development that comes with it. So again, and that applies to everything else. If you're a retail store, you could just use the technology that someone else developed, and that someone else developed the technology would need more infrastructure money. But again, so the first camp is a little bit premium. The second camp is where the question becomes how far you want to go. If you want to just have a level 3 autonomous driving, or level 4 or level 5 or level 6, right? Some people are doing the level 2 with the current infrastructure they have. They don't need the extra infrastructure, but level 3, level 4, they need more GPUs, they need more data, they need more storage, they need more software, et cetera, et cetera. All comes with the infrastructure. So again, the answer is no. You don't need $1 billion. You might need $1 billion depending on what you're doing. If you're flying cars, you're not going to do it with a small amount. Or if you're going to do something that someone else hasn't done it before, right? So again, I don't know, you want to fly a mouse. I don't know. You want to make someone that hasn't done it before, then you will need the extra infrastructure cost. But, for example, I don't want to make this as a NetApp conversation, but within NetApp, we are helping those who need to do the AI. We are actually helping them get the infrastructure that they need specifically for AI, not selling all the bells and whistles, right? So I think a lot of companies are doing the same. There's a great appetite in the market from all the vendors, and we also have our own responsibilities of helping the field, right? So for example, if a customer calls me and they are highly enthusiastic to do something with AI, so I feel the responsibility to help these guys. Not only, we are all in sales, but I feel personally, and I tell this to my team, is let's help these guys. It doesn't mean we're gonna go and tell them, hey, you need a $200 million infrastructure, that they're gonna quit on their idea. So I think everyone in this market should feel responsible on how you want to help these people. Yes, you want to make money, but at the same time, this is a technology that we are all collaborating together to get it into the level where everyone can adopt it. So how can I help my customers to not freak them out with the cost, or even give them something that they don't need, et cetera, et cetera. Also,
exactly. That goes for all sales, I guess. I mean, if you want to be a good salesman.
Yeah, exactly. But again, also the other thing is, we are seeing, because it's a new area, right? Customers still don't have the knowledge of, let's say, the VMware or the SQL, that they can identify the bullshit from not the bullshit, right? So I think we all should feel responsible on how do we react to customer requests. A lot of times I'll tell customers, I can't do this alone. We are specialists. And a lot of time I see others, not especially competitors, coming in and saying, oh, we can do everything. No, that will dilute the customer, that will make their projects take longer. Just tell them what you can do. What are you good at, right?
Right. I mean, it feels like, from my not a specialist perspective, though, but still, a real big, from the ground up, new use case AI development project seems to need experts from all different types of areas. You need your data scientists, but you also need your infrastructure specialists, because the data scientists can't do it. You have to have your analytics specialists and so on. So, I guess there's a lot of consultants as well involved from different companies, a collaboration to hopefully bring humanity forward through that project or something.
Yeah, absolutely. 90% of the projects that we are engaged on today, we have some sort of a partner in the play ourselves, right? I'm talking about only NetApp here. And the partners could be a consulting partner, a partner could be NVIDIA, a partner could be, our channel partners, etc. But again, this is a team play. If you're a goalkeeper, you cannot play forward. and you cannot play soccer without a team. And I think this is a new game that we're all learning. And I'm learning from the guys who play at different positions. I'm learning from data scientists. And, and I'll tell you, historically, we have done these mistakes too, right? Where we think we could fix everything. And, if someone asks me, it just happened in this morning, actually, where, I need use cases on AI in finance. I get that request. Okay, I can easily go on Google, AI use cases in finance, probably hundreds of articles. I can screenshot some graphics, put it in a good PowerPoint of 10 pages and go and present to the customer. The customer will be, oh, wow, this is what we want to do. And then when you say, oh, well, I can't do all of this, I haven't done it before, why did you waste my time, right? Or even you struggle with that too. So our immediate response nowadays is engage a partner who has done the use case before. Eventually, the use case will come down into an infrastructure need. That's where, okay, now you guys open up. It's my turn, right? Get off the stage. It's my turn. But don't get on the stage if you can't sing low. Get on the stage when you can show your power of singing high tones. So that's, I think it's something evolving, and we did mistakes before. We're learning from our mistakes. I personally went 3 years ago into a meeting where I said, oh, I know a lot of things about AI, and I presented a AI use case in cars or whatever, and then I ended up not going anywhere with that meeting because they wanted something that I didn't have to offer. We're engaging people who have literally spent years in PhD in molecular science. I haven't spent years of PhD in molecular science, so I don't think I have the same knowledge that those guys do.
Right?
That
must be like a challenge talking it over totally different experts talking to each other.
And this is not a VMware sale or a SQL sale or a VDI sale, right? Where we know what it is, we can put it into the system. People are talking real life use cases, right? So if I'm sitting in a room with 10 researchers trying to understand how this algorithm will detect the tumor, I'm not knowledgeable on, if you ask me what's the benign size of the tumor versus the sick one, I can research on Google. I can, probably memorize it for a day or two, but then ask me after a week, I don't know. But ask me what infrastructure is needed to deploy this algorithm that detects a tumor. I'll tell you in a speed light, and you need this, you need that, and I'll help you do that, right?
Exactly. Well, we at Proact, we're kind of in the same position as you, right? We're infrastructure experts working with you and NVIDIA to deliver AI infrastructure, but we're not AI experts when it comes to developing it. You're talking about use cases and so on. Do you have, what do you see the most? What are the most common use cases you see, or within what area?
I think in the past 12 months, I would say healthcare has been very, very rapidly growing area. Most of the projects that we work on are healthcare related, not COVID, but in general healthcare of, pathology, radiology, trust data collection, all of that. That has been a good use case area. We're seeing retail, as I mentioned, specifically the digital transformation of the retail, where you need a remote, face makeup, try this makeup on your face while you're sitting at your home. And then oil and gas, to be honest with you, 2 years ago, it started really well, but then, we are all aware of all the different things that happened, oil and gas. We are still in conversations about it. Autonomous driving obviously has been ongoing discussion in the past 3 years. Europe has been talking a lot about it. But again, COVID hit that market as well a little bit. What else? I think those are the main ones. FSI, to be honest with you, we have had quite good success, but I'm not seeing it to the level of healthcare yet. And I think most of that is related to a lot of regulations that engage the FSIs. FSI data centers are pretty tight in terms of what goes in, has to be really certified, verified.
It's a legacy stuff
it's a lot
too,
of
right?
legacy. It's a lot of risk, right? I think healthcare, you could still try it, test it, but financials, if the money is gone, that's a big thing. But fraud detection is picking up. If you ask me what is the most use case within the financial sector, I would tell you fraud detection is picking up. The good news is for fraud detection, once someone created the algorithm, it can propagate into a transfer learning, so everyone can still use it. In healthcare, it's different. Every hospital will have their own different ways of doing things. And that's why every hospital, when I say hospital, I'm not talking about the regional hospitals. I'm talking more about the big healthcare institutions, right?
Yeah, right. Universities,
universities. For example, in the States, there are multiple big healthcare providers.
Right.
And then, those are the main areas, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Government is a big, of course, entity by itself. So I'm not mentioning about public sector because use case, there is this big, there is this book of the AI war between the countries. I don't know if you guys have read it, but this AI war has been there for a very long time. In the past 4 or 5 years, it's going on. We don't know much, obviously, but there is a great work happening in the AI for the public sector industry.
Okay, cool. So interesting. Where do you see AI going within like the coming 10 years?
A very good question. I think, step back, I personally think that GPUs will accelerate more workloads. Seeing where this thing is going, I believe we will see the GPU variant of SQLs, the GPU variant of Oracles. Someone will tell me, you're crazy. The way SQL works doesn't work for the GPUs, but then they will make GPUs work the way SQL works, I guess.
Right.
Again, not saying that the CPUs will fade. CPUs will still be there for forever for different use cases, but I'm seeing more and more they added Spark now. They're gonna add more and more use cases, right? So that's an area that I think it's gonna grow. For AI, it's gonna be more humane, if you ask me. People will be very careful about, the deep fakes of this world, right? They hurt technologies, and people will be more responsible. I won't be surprised if I see regulations about, for example, there were regulations you can't watch pirated movies, right?
Right.
I think there will be regulations of you can't use AI technology to harm people's lives. So I won't be surprised if I see bodies government bodies in the future specifically looking at these things, right?
Sounds
they're gonna
reasonable.
they're gonna make it more human, attractive to make the technology grow. That's where I see this going on. Now, the use case perspective, obviously, every university today probably is teaching data science course as one of the mandatory courses for freshmen, sophomores. I mean, that tells you 5 years down we will have a good workforce, a good amount. Believe it or not, there's still like a shortage of data scientists nowadays.
Yeah,
right?
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
So I'm sure 5 years down the road, there's going to be a lot of, like I did data science 10 years ago. Did I know it's going to become like this? I would have probably pursued my PhD, which I declined. But I think, that's where it's and the more human brain you have thinking about this, and at the same time, the technology is rising. I think, in my opinion, the technology out there today lacks the experience to use it. right? I think the technology is way above the people who can use it.
Right. That's an interesting perspective. I think you're right, but I've never thought about that.
I think 5 years down there, it's crazy the pace NVIDIA is moving. I mean, 3 years down the road, they already came up with their 4th version of the GPUs. And imagine if you have people more than the technology, then you'll feel the pressure of generating more technology. Whereas if you have a lot of technology but you don't have people using it, then the technology will start slowing down and eventually, hopefully, not fade. But I think again, looking at the courses, looking at a lot of, like I see a lot, I have cousins, I have friends, they come to me, it's like they want to do data science. A lot of people now want to get themselves into the data science because they read and hear that data scientists are getting paid crazily, which is right. And everyone is, want to be a data scientist now or data engineer. So I think that's where the technology is going, or the overall AI is going. I covered only small aspects of it. There's a lot of, the data scientists themselves will have their own, will tell you, oh, we have done the GAN networks. Now we're going to have different types of networks, right? I didn't cover that aspect because, again, I'll leave it to, if you host a data scientist someday who's doing this, they'll tell you that down the road, 5 years from now, we'll have a neural network with less amount of networks possible and less number of features possible, and giving us the same output that we had, right?
Ever worked with a quantum computer?
I haven't ever worked with. I read about them. My focus has been with the GPU computing nowadays. I think that quantum computing is picking up. It will take time. IBM is obviously leading that research at the moment. We have in NetApp a great person, Deep Dennison, out of APAC. He is very enthusiastic about quantum computing. You can host him on one of your sessions, and he can give you a deep dive into quantum computing. So QC,
thank you. That's a great tip.
Yeah, but QC will be down the road. I'm a person who likes to focus. What are we doing? Because if we have a great technology nowadays, and I believe we're still not fully getting the max out of what we have today. So I want to focus what we have today. So
yeah, absolutely. All right. So I have another question for you. I think you're into home automation and stuff like that, and assistant. You mentioned Alexa and Google Assistant and stuff like that. What's the coolest thing like you own, consumer apparatus that has to do with anything with AI?
I actually, you probably noticed that I mentioned Face ID a lot today. Yeah. My Face ID stopped working yesterday, and I'm suffering in the past 2 days that I've never been. And I actually have an appointment later on to get it fixed because I was like, wow. I didn't realize that I'm so hooked into the face that, and I was thinking, did I become lazy that I don't want to put passcodes anymore? Or it was more like, and I realized that it's the time saving. It's, I need something very quickly. I looked at it, it opens up and I use it rather than just going and typing probably a second or two. It's funny. So I use that a lot. I realize that I'm a big user. If I go into a hotel and I don't have a Google Home, I miss it. You can't believe that how I'm impressed with Netflix's recommendation system. So that's also an area that I think I leverage AI heavily there. Those are the things that I think. My car is not yet, so I don't own a Tesla or something else. Maybe if I start doing that, that will become my favorite. So I don't still own a car that is heavily AI enabled. So.
I think we've covered most of the things we wanted to talk about. It's been very interesting and very wide, the discussion.
Thank you. This has been really useful. I really enjoyed the time, Nico.
Thank
maybe
you.
we can do this again. If anyone wants a different topic or wants to get down into, I've always been also a video surveillance expert. So we can also talk about that. and how that is helping with the overall technology advancements. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome to come back anytime, Hoseb.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right.